Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. In this video I will be explaining to you guys how to import a car from Japan to Canada step by step. How to purchase that vehicle, how to import it into Canada, how to do all the paperwork, and registering the vehicle. So the first thing you have to do is basically find a website. If you guys are comfortable with buying cars, let's say you're not worried if something is broken, you know how to fix it yourself. For example, if the car needs like brakes and just a simple gasket, you guys can change that yourself. I would recommend you go to this website. The reason for that is sometimes on this website I have run across some cars that need some work. For example, the last Subaru I bought needed a clutch. It's funny because the ad said brand new clutch, and when I got it, it was honestly at the very top and it was almost done. And that guy completely lied to me, so just be careful of sellers on here. They do tend to lie. If you can find the auction sheet, if you can find someone to translate it, it'll tell you exactly what's wrong with that car on there. And when these guys purchased it, they'll basically buy it from the auction, take some pictures, and sometimes they'll post the sheet. So if you guys have access to this sheet and you can get someone to translate it, they'll usually tell you what has been replaced, if the panel has been painted, or if a bumper has been replaced and painted, or if the car has been in an accident, this and that. It'll tell you some basic things on the auction sheet. For example, if you guys don't know what you're doing and you just want, if you don't mind paying like a broker $1,000 to find the right car for you to make sure it's not broken or there's nothing wrong with it, I would recommend somebody like Brave Auto. Basically, the reason I like him is he does walk around videos. He shows you exactly what you're buying. He shows you if something has, a little scratch or whatever on here or this and that. But he usually buys really nice vehicles, and I really like some of the cars and vans and trucks and whatever he buys because they're really clean. And if you guys are looking for something specific, he can find you pretty much anything. So he's really good. I like following him. I like his channel. I like his website. He's a really nice guy if you guys want to deal with this guy. The other guy I've dealt with is this guy. Basically what you can do with him is just register here, and then you can log in and you can have access to the auctions here. He also does a few walk around videos, which is not too bad. You guys can check out some of his stuff. The other guy does a little bit more in detail than this guy, but similar. I'm pretty sure if you ask him if you can do a walk around video of the one you're interested in, I'm pretty sure he'll do it for you. So when you get to his site, you can actually go directly. So these are my saved options. So what you can do is find what vehicle you want here. You just search whatever you want, and oops, sorry, no, you got to go to the Japanese auctions here. So since I have them saved here, I'm not going to go through there. Well, you can here. I'll just show you what it looks like basically. Let's say we were looking at a Subaru. Let's say Impreza. Let's say a WRX. All right, so after you've selected the vehicle you want, to be able to import a vehicle into Canada from Japan, it has to be 15 years old to the month. Let's say, for example, it's November and your car is legal in December, but it lands in November. You are probably going to have to pay some penalties or some fees for having the car wait there, or actually they might even refuse it entry. So be very careful when you order a car or when you buy something. It has to be 15 years old to the month when it lands in Canada if you guys want to import it legally. So for that, as it is 2018 right now, I'm going to select the 2003. So basically, if let's say it's October, and I buy a car that's in December, if it takes about 2 or 3 months to ship it here, you'll be okay. But if it takes anything longer than that, let's say it occurs in 04 November, you're gonna have problems there. You're not gonna be able to import it and stuff like that. So these are basically the options I have, and they'll filter at anything up to 2003, so you guys can just click on whatever you want here. This one is actually sold, it says here, but here's how much it sold. It was 590,000 yen. The starting bid was 80,000. And then what he does is actually add his fee on top of that, plus your shipping and your other fees that you have to calculate when the car gets to Canada. So with this one, this is what I was talking about with the auction sheet. So this car is a 3.5 grading, and so it's a 3.5D, and I believe one of these is for interior and one is for, so this is for exterior condition. It's out of 5. One of these is for interior. I can't remember which one it was, but one is for interior and one is for something else. So this condition is actually not too bad. I bought a car before that was a D, and it wasn't too bad. I had a few holes in the dashboard, but I wouldn't go below C and below 3.5. That's kind of a middle ground that I wouldn't go past. I've bought a car that was a 3D. Wasn't the greatest car, to be honest. Like, it was a little rough. I've also seen somebody who bought one that was a 2 and it was like an F or something. It was terrible, and he had to swap out the interior. Yeah, there's some faded panels and stuff like that, but yeah. So here it'll basically explain. You guys can find this sheet online if you Google what all these mean. So whatever the code is for U3, that's what happened to the hood. You guys can search all this if you Google it hard enough, and you can find what all those terms mean. And then this will basically explain to you about the vehicle. And then here's some pictures of the car to show you more detailed. Alright, so once you guys go through those, and you find the car you want, you can send the guys a message, and you can say, I want to pay maximum, let's say this much. Can you, here, I'll place a bid here, or can we agree to something? Before he places a bid on any of your vehicles, you have to put a down payment of, I think it's $1,000 US. So keep that in mind. But anyways, if you guys are familiar with your cars, this is another website you can use, and here you can find, let's say, a WRX right here. So these guys will be a little bit more expensive. The only reason for that is you're buying from a dealership, you're not buying from an auction. So what these guys normally do is buy the car from that same auction. They most likely rarely fix anything on them, to be honest. From the vehicles I've received, majority of them, I'd say about 80% of them either needed tires or a window regulator or seals or a clutch or something like that. So be very wary of these guys. Majority of these cars, unless you're getting one with like 60,000 kilometers, then it might not need anything. Like this one might not, oops. This one here might not need anything because it only has about 98,000 kilometers, but you never know. These cars were driven for 15 years and they were driven very little here and there, like 10 kilometers here, 10 kilometers there. So they might have more wear than somebody who's driving them longer distances in Canada, for example. So be careful with that. Also, you're paying a higher premium here most of the time, so these guys can probably mark it up by 3,000 and maybe up to 4, maybe even more, depending on the dealer. The way you guys can track that is try to find a similar vehicle on the auction thing here, see how much they're selling for, try to find one here, and try to work on the middle ground with the guys. So, for example, like this one's a little bit rough, which is why he's asking 3,000 US versus this guy. It's a little bit better condition, and he's asking 13,000. Okay, so one thing you should be careful of is certain sellers. So if they only have pictures on here from the auction, so you see one in one corner, one in the other one, and that's all you see, you don't see detailed pictures like this, it usually means these guys don't own the vehicle. So for example, I bought this one car that had leather interior and about 80,000 kilometers. Now when I got the car that I paid for, it actually had 64,000 kilometers and cloth seats. So that kind of tells me that wasn't the vehicle that I bought originally, that I thought I was buying. So one thing I would be very careful of is making sure that they have very detailed pictures, something that shows that they actually have this car, and not just showing the auction, showing you a little more detailed. You know, if they show you the VIN, if they don't show you engine pictures and it says turbo, I wouldn't really trust them. There has been some times where they'll sell you a non-turbo and they'll just hide it that it's not a non-turbo, and somebody who doesn't have any clue will just buy it thinking it's a turbo, but thinking he got an awesome deal, and then when he gets it, it's a non-turbo Silvia or something like that. Okay, so we're talking about final prices now. So if you go to change your destination, and you can basically choose New Westminster, Halifax, or Vancouver Port, I would recommend you get the insurance, the marine insurance. Now, if something happens to your car, like let's say somebody steals something, which has happened to me, this is not covered under insurance. This insurance is in case the car goes into the water and can never be found again. This insurance is against anything, loss, theft, whatever damages, total losses, that's what that is for. If somebody robs something out of your car, you're not covered. I actually had that happen to me. I had an HKS turbo timer stolen from my car, and the guy put it back kind of very poorly, tried to hide that he didn't steal it, and when I got it, I realized that I didn't have an HKS timer anymore, so I called the insurance and they didn't cover it. So there's two types of plans you can get. There's a type A and type B. Make sure if you guys want to be covered for that, you select the one that covers you for any damages, because this just covers in case the car goes down. So if you were to calculate what the total for that would be, it would basically be about $20,000 Canadian. Now that's CIF. CIF is basically car, insurance, and freight. So your freight on this car is roughly about I think $1,500, something like that, plus the rest is insurance and all the other stuff. Now you can negotiate with these guys, and I would recommend you do that with these guys. Ask them what their best price is, ask them for more pictures, talk to them about the car, see if he can send you more information and stuff like that. On top of this price here, you will have to pay duty, and depending on your province, if you guys are in Alberta, you only pay 6% duty, and I believe the other provinces have to pay an additional tax for PST. I'm not 100% sure, but basically add an additional between $1,000 to $1,500 with shipping. Yeah, I'd say between $1,000 to $2,000 if you want to be safe. So I would roughly estimate this car total cost to be around $21,500 to $22,000, I'd say, if you want to safely, if I want to give a safe number. So that's roughly the number. When you guys are purchasing a vehicle, one recommendation I would give is to buy one that hasn't been modified, preferably one without an. Most of them have been lowered and they put exhausts on them. The reason I'm saying that is if you don't have a catalytic converter, you actually might have a hard time passing the out-of-province inspection when the car gets here. So try to find a car that's not heavily modified. So for example, if you guys are buying a really heavily modified Skyline or something ridiculously fast, you might have a hard time getting it to pass an out-of-province inspection depending on where you go. So one thing I would recommend is try not to find something that's ridiculously lowered or like, you know, has a really loud exhaust that has no catalytic converters on it or something like that, because otherwise you will have a hard time passing that inspection, and if you have to convert everything back to stock, it might end up even costing you more money. So after you find your vehicle and you decide to, you know what, you want to speak to this guy and you work out a deal. So you speak to that broker or that person when you buy your car, then they're going to tell you how you can make the payment. Usually it's a wire transfer, and then once you get the wire transfer, they either send you the car or they'll book a shipping, and it'll take about 2 or 3 months to have the car delivered. I've usually got it between 3 and 4 months on average from Japan to Vancouver, and then from Vancouver I take it to Alberta. So once you purchase your vehicle and pay for the shipping and paid for pretty much everything for the car to get here, once the car lands here, you're going to have to find an import broker. What I recommend is using Thompson Pacific Logistics. The reason I recommend him, I've been using him since 2007. He's a really, really nice guy. He emails you back immediately. He only charges about $250 to do your paperwork. If you guys are in Vancouver and you want to do your own paperwork, you can. You just have to file it and sign, and somebody has to be there in person to sign it and pay the taxes on it. If you guys cannot be in Vancouver or at your port where your car lands, let's say you live in Alberta but your car lands in Vancouver, you will either have to fly out to do the paperwork yourself, or you have to pay somebody like Al Thompson here to do your paperwork and import forms and your duty and all that stuff for you. So what he's going to do is he's going to do all of your paperwork. He's going to submit it to the government. They're going to look through it. They're going to see what you paid for the vehicle, subtract the shipping, and then they'll charge you taxes based only on the vehicle, not the shipping or any other things you have to pay to get the car here. So what you do is you normally pay the 6% duty and whatever other fees he gives you. Like there's a couple other fees. He will explain what everything is in the email, and then he'll add an additional fee for his services for doing all that for you. Once that's done, you pay him. He submits all the paperwork. Everything gets released, then you can hire a tow truck driver. Once you guys find somebody to get your vehicle from the port to your destination, what you need to do now is do an out-of-province inspection. Now it's different based on province. I'm explaining this for Alberta. So if you guys are in Alberta, this is how it works here. You go to the registries, you ask for an out-of-province form. They're around $10, and then you take that form, you bring it to your mechanic, he inspects the car, either he fails it or passes it. If he fails it, he'll tell you exactly what's wrong with it. Make sure you guys, if you do get a car that fails, make sure some of the mechanics will actually give you a couple of days to fix your problem and then to give you a free reinspection. But if you take long enough, they won't do the free reinspection again. So for example, when I bought my Subaru, I needed brakes and tires. I knew about the tires, so I changed the tires before I brought it to him. When I brought it to him, he measured the brakes and he said the rotors were a little bit too skinny, so I had to change the brakes. So I changed the entire rotors and pads, and basically he said, if you do it within a week, I won't charge you for a reinspection. I just have to make sure the brakes have been done. So I went home, changed the brakes that same day, brought it back to him. He checked that they were brand new, He literally signed off on the paper, gave me my paper, I submitted it to the registry, and I was able to register my vehicle. Before you guys take your vehicle to the inspection, first thing I would recommend, make sure your windshield is not cracked. All of your lights, signal lights, headlights, tail lights have to be functioning. If any of them do not work, your car automatically fails. You have to have daytime running lights. If you guys don't know how to do daytime running lights, I'm pretty sure you can Google it based on what vehicle you buy. Otherwise, you can pay, I believe it's between $100 to $200 for somebody to just hook it up at the shop you're taking it to. Make sure there's no major leaks that can cause fires. Tires and brakes are good. The brakes have to be a certain thickness for them to pass it. If they're not, they'll fail you, and they'll usually tell you have this many days to fix it if you want us to re-inspect it for free. Make sure you guys ask about the re-inspection, because most likely most of you will run into that problem where you will have to get the car re-inspected again. So just before you book it in, ask them, what's your policy on re-inspection in case I fail for any reason? And they'll usually let you know. If they say, oh no, I charge either way, honestly, go to a Canadian Tire, because they're just going to look at your car to make sure it's safe and roadworthy, and they're just going to pass it. Otherwise, you can go to any mechanic that'll do it, because I know Canadian Tire will honor their stuff if they'll give a certain grace period. So that's pretty much how you import a car from Japan to Canada. If you guys have any questions or I may have missed something, please leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, feel free to check out some of my other videos.